All criminal charges against former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo have been dropped by prosecutors. Cuomo was set to appear in court this Friday over allegations that he groped a former aide. District Attorney David Soares wrote, quote, "While we found the complainant in this case cooperative and credible, after review of all the available evidence, we have concluded that we cannot meet our burden at trial." This comes only a few days after a Cuomo spokesperson announced that the DA will not file criminal charges in connection with Cuomo's handling of COVID deaths in New York's nursing homes. Here to weigh in is Katie Halper. She's host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast. Katie, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Katie, what happened?
I mean, I sound naive to say that I'm shocked, but I am shocked. And again, that's on me because I don't know what I was expecting. This is typical kind of elite immunity circle jerk that we see again and again. What's interesting is, I mean, now the only question is where Andrew Cuomo is going to become an ambassador to, right? I think that's the only thing that we don't know. And Japan has been taken by Rahm Emanuel, sadly. But I'm looking forward to Chris and Andrew getting appointments, ambassadorship appointments from the Biden administration.
Well, you know, they're holding the Italian embassy open, obviously, for Pelosi, so it can't be
Right.
It can't be the Italian one. So.
Yeah, that's too bad. I'm sure that Mario's looking down, very upset about that.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So while I'm, dismayed, obviously, about this news, I mean, the bigger news, and I think you've made this point too, Katie, right? The getting lots of people killed, like an objectively bigger sexual assault, misconduct also bad, harassment bad.
Right.
But, killing lots of people just kind of objectively worse, and they're not going to even hold him accountable for that.
Yeah,
Right.
What I don't understand is that, again, I mean, I hope that civil suits are brought by the affected parties against against Andrew Cuomo. But what is kind of shocking is that we know, like, there's no controversy over this, right? I understand that, part of the reason that the Me Too movement exists is because our criminal justice system is so ill-equipped to handle these cases. So that's a little bit less surprising in some ways. But we know that Cuomo covered up the nursing home scandal. We know this from his aide, who admitted this. Like, she said this out loud in front of people. So I don't even understand what possible excuse the DA's office could have for not bringing charges, for not prosecuting him.
It's obvious corruption. It's such obvious corruption in service of a very clear financial motive, his book sales.
Yeah, I also wonder, I mean, we know from Ron Kim, Queens Assemblyman Ron Kim, who's one of the brave people who actually went after Andrew Cuomo or spoke out against this. And he was there when Cuomo's aide admitted that they had covered up the nursing home scandal. As we know from what he says, that Andrew Cuomo called him up and said and threatened, "I will destroy you." And it's been said by many people, not to sound like Trump, many people, but a lot of people have said that Andrew Cuomo is incredibly vindictive and threatening. So I wonder I wouldn't be surprised if between Andrew and Chris, not to sound conspiratorial, but between the two of them, they probably have lots of info on lots of people. It could also just be like kind of the dinner party circuit and scratching people's backs and other financial motives that we don't know about. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there was something that you don't want to go after a Cuomo because Cuomo will do anything in his power to bring you down. And again, as you said, Robbie, the only thing that could make this worse is that it was used in the service or coordinated with an incredibly lucrative book deal. Like, it's not enough to kill your grandmas and grandpas, but he had to do it in a way that he profited off of, not just politically, but financially. I mean, the whole thing is just so absurd and so upsetting. And then you see people are like on Twitter, oh, well, Chris Cuomo gets in trouble because he's texted his brother and, but Sean Hannity doesn't get in trouble for coordinating January 6th. It's like, you can't just say, but Trump. You can't just say, but Hannity. That's not enough. We have to be actually going after powerful people. And it's not enough to just point out that there are other powerful people who aren't gone after. It's just an embarrassment, honestly, to see people defending Cuomo.
Well, and also we have direct orders from Cuomo. I mean, this wasn't just like, well, maybe he did X, Y, Z. Like Bolsonaro, for example, down in Brazil is actually being charged. Isn't he being charged with mass murder, I believe, for his COVID-19 pandemic response and for all the deaths that have happened in Brazil. And even that is a little bit different. Having some sort of policy, like whether or not you have to wear a mask or whether or not you have to lock down, is one thing. But Cuomo actually was, he was in charge.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so but no one's investigating that. No, we're really looking into it to the point where they're actually going to be serious about it.
Right.
But I do want to go back to the aide and the groping and why he wasn't charged with this. So she alleges that he grabbed her butt and her breast, right? Is that what the allegations are against him?
Yeah.
And I'm curious how New York handles it, because I know that her allegation is that he grabbed her breast, but over the bra. And I'm not sure what the laws are in New York. It's really interesting to find out why they couldn't go after him.
I'm sure there's something that they could come up with. I'm not an expert. I don't know the law, but I'm sure that there's something that they could come up to that's proportionate to the groping. Obviously there are different ways that you can charge people.
Right. I mean, they come up with charges for other people, right? They throw the book at them. They find 9, 10, 11 different charges to come up with for one crime for someone else. So why can't they come up with at least one or two?
Conspiracy to obstruct justice in the service of sexual misconduct, right?
I mean,
It also goes to Katie's point earlier about how hard it is sometimes to prosecute these cases because the only witness is the victim, and even if the victim is credible, the jury has a hard time getting to a place of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. So beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
because you have to like go to the hospital and seek and say to the doctor. I mean, what woman is going to go to the hospital to tell the doctor this man groped my breast? That's not something you necessarily go to a doctor for. It's or maybe
in a criminal case, it has to be that. Beyond a reasonable doubt, not just I'm more likely than not it happened, but I have to be really, really sure. Which is a bar to get to sometimes.
I mean, of course, we know that the law is not neutral, right? So let's also be real about that, right? Like the DA's office could choose to send a statement that whether or not we would like the law to not be neutral, it clearly is a political tool. And so the DA's office, of course, could send a statement that says more or less, powerful men should not be allowed to grope their employees and their subordinates. DAs go after cases all the time without knowing the outcome. So I also think that that's just kind of another BS excuse. But I think, again, what makes me that much more confident that it's a ridiculous charade and a miscarriage of justice is that they're not going after him for the thing that there's so much evidence for doing, which is not just the mishandling of nursing homes, but the covering up of that mishandling. And of course, there's the whole element of doing it after having written into the budget something that gave nursing homes and hospitals immunity from liability. And that's, of course, something that's incredibly disturbing. The fact that he basically set it up so that they wouldn't get in trouble for liability, which is one of the biggest ways that nursing homes get in trouble for the deaths of patients. And so it's all just a huge, disgusting. It's something that, again, I say this a lot, but if Trump did this or a Trumpian Republican did this, people would be rightly up in arms. But because it's Cuomo, some people aren't up in arms about it. And it's really disgusting. And that's not how Democrats, this isn't how you win politics, by trying to be as disgusting as the other side.
And Katie,
we could almost, we could almost blame it on Republicans a little bit on this, right? Because, if it were a Trump or Trumpian person, then Democrats would be going after that person. But where are the Republicans on this? They're not really, they're bringing it up, but not to the level that Democrats would be bringing it up.
Right. Well, because at a certain level of power and elite, it becomes post-partisan.
Right.
And Katie, what about the Department of Justice? What's their role in the nursing home question? Because that is, it was the Trump Department of Justice that kicked this off, and that's what DeRosa was saying she was trying to avoid by covering this up, was getting entangled with the Trump Department of Justice. So what's the role for the Biden Department of Justice when it comes to the nursing home deaths?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, right? Because there is what's your excuse for not looking into that? There's no longer a corrupt president in power. You're not going to be punished for doing that. So again, there's just no excuse for not going after Cuomo. And again, I'm embarrassed to say I was surprised because I shouldn't be. But I was.
That's okay. Improve your cynicism for next time.
Thank you.
That's your homework for this week. Become more. All of us need to become more cynical. Katie Halper, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more Rising right after this.